All right, blessings and welcome to Congregation Rehoboth, our Thursday Torah Talk live. I wanted to add something to that Thursday night Torah Talk. Thursday night Torah Truth Talks. All right, Thursday night Torah Truth Talks. Every Thursday, 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. That's PST. That D is right next to the S, so we're on Pacific Standard Time out here on the West Coast, Cali, Northern Cal, or NorCal time. And so tonight, we're going to be looking at Parashat Eikev, which means as a result. And where did I write that at? Hold on. That's the wrong banner. That is the wrong banner. So let me hide that really quick. Eikev, as a result. And so in this Torah portion, guys, in this Torah talk tonight, it's right there on the screen. We're going to continue listening and hearing the final words of Moses or Moshe, as he is giving instructions to the Israelites on how they should go in to possess the land, to possess the promised land that Yah had promised them. Again, he's going to show them how he wants them to possess the land. And also, he's going to give them some instructions on how he wants them to carry that out and what he wants them to do exactly. And this may rub some people the wrong way. But yes, Yah instructed Moses and the children of Israel to not just instruct them, but he reminds them. It's one thing to have one instruction, but Yah reminds them that he wants Israel to annihilate, to destroy, to wipe off the face of the earth. Now, you may say, well, what kind of God is that would command humans to destroy other humans, to destroy women, men, and children, and babies? Well, what kind of God is that? I can't serve that kind of God that would do that. By the way, these same people agree with abortion. They agree with the death penalty. They agree with it. Why? Because they will argue that these people did something, come on and go with me, to deserve that kind of punishment. But my question is, well, what did the baby do? And so, many people would like to dehumanize the baby in the womb and call it a fetus, which is just a Latin word. Come on and go with me here, guys. Latin, the word fetus is a Latin word, which means baby in English. Okay. So what did the fetus do to deserve that kind of annihilation? All right. And so we need to be able, and I pray that you have this same fire and passion inside you like I do, to defend the faith. Whenever someone brings a question of doubt, concern, or they want to destroy the teachings that we believe that are in the Torah Truth Talks tonight, we need to be able to do like Peter said. We need to always be ready for what? To argue, to get mad and get upset? No. He says you always need to be ready to give an answer. That means to logically, coherently give someone, watch this, a satisfactory answer to the point where they got to make a decision. Either they're going to accept it, they're going to embrace it because they're embracing the truth, or like Paul said in Romans chapter 1, they're going to suppress it. So you only have two choices, guys, when you hear truth. Either you're going to embrace it and welcome it into your life, or you're going to suppress it. So all these questions about, well, I just don't know. No. When you hear truth, you're going to do one or two things. You're either going to embrace it or you're going to suppress it. So, Yah reminds Moses to annihilate, eliminate people who have rebelled against him. And incidentally, that is the fate, that is the result. As a result of rejecting Yah, it is in the indicative mood that you will be annihilated. Oh my goodness. And so we're going to jump right in tonight as we deal with Eikev as a result. And so I want to ask a question. And I had this whole like introduction, this whole like, and I said, you know what? I'm creating a sermon, a lesson. And I said, I can't do that tonight. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pose a question. And so if you can go ahead and get your Bibles out, guys, while you're getting your Bibles, go ahead and grab something to write with. And listen, you need to take notes. Why? You need to take notes because you're not going to remember the important truths that are being discussed in this Torah talk tonight. You're just not. And so now again, by getting your pencil, your pen, something to write with, you're either embracing, come on and go with me here, or you are consciously and actively deciding to reject it. All right. And so at least I always tell my daughter and, especially teenagers, and I don't just tell them this about the scriptures, but about anything that you're going to decide to reject, at least know what it is you're rejecting. So people would rather reject the scriptures ignorantly without even knowing what the scriptures teach, instead of saying, you know what? Let me really understand what the scriptures teach. And so then I can make, watch this, a coherent, a wise decision as a result of understanding whether I'm going to embrace or reject. I mean, that's the least you can do, is to listen and understand to the point where if you are going to reject, at least know what you're rejecting. And so I encourage you tonight to not reject it right away. Don't turn it off. Don't turn me off. Don't turn Yah off. But if you're going to reject it, embrace it first in order to understand it. Give mental assent. That doesn't mean you're saved. That doesn't mean you believe in the scriptures and Yah. But giving mental assent means that at least I've considered it. I've pondered what is being said. And because I've thought about it and because it made either sense to me or it did not make sense, then I'm going to make my decision. Now, the way that it's going to make sense to you, the reason why it doesn't make sense, let me start there. The reason why it will not make sense to you is because you're starting off with confirmation bias. Come on, go with me here, guys. Can someone look up confirmation bias, or how many remember what confirmation bias is? Again, the reason why you decide to reject or embrace anything is simply because of confirmation bias. Now, who knows what confirmation or remembers what confirmation bias, or if you've looked it up? Confirmation bias.
I had to look it up because my other notebook is where I wrote my notes down in, but it's pretty much people who only will believe something that exists in their already held beliefs.
All right. So let's break it down. Break it down. In other words, I'm not agreeing with nothing that, even though it could be true, people who use confirmation bias, what they're doing is they're protecting what they believe, because what they believe gives them, watch this, guys, what a person, this is confirmation bias. What a person believes allows them to think that they're still in control. I wish somebody would go with me here. Now, when you realize that you cannot control truth, but truth controls you, that is what people are rejecting when they use confirmation bias to deny not just the scripts, but to deny any kind of truth, which ultimately comes from Yah himself. And so this is super important to understand. And so I want to ask this question. I'm going to put it up on the screen here. This is the one that I should have had up. All right. So remember, as a result, Eikev is in Deuteronomy chapter 7 and verse number 12, I believe. I think the first few words is as a result, I believe. Yeah, Deuteronomy 7 and 12. I think the first few words is as a result. That's what the Torah portion does. It takes the first few words of the beginning of the Parashat and uses that as a subject matter or topic or theme. All right. And so I want you to think about this question right here that I put up. As a result of events that have happened in our lives. Got a typo there. And see how that O is next to that I. Okay. Here it is. So as a result of events that have happened, I want you to think about in your lives, guys. I'm talking about going all the way back to where you can remember. As a result of those certain events that have happened, it could have been a parent passing away. It could have been being homeless with your parents growing up. It could have been looking at, something tragic that happened or something traumatic that has happened in your life. And usually, people don't reject Yah because of good things that have happened. Usually it's a result of traumatic, disappointing things that have happened. It could have been, watching a friend die, a close friend that was so good, was so nice and beautiful. And I mean, they were just the nicest person you knew, but then he allowed someone wicked and devilish to live, and it just didn't make sense to you. And so this was a traumatic event that we experienced. And at that moment, we made a decision, or there were a series of traumatic events where you felt like you could not get a break, where you felt like, oh my goodness, if one more thing happens, I'm done with God. I'm done with him. And so as a result of those traumatic events or event in your life, our lives, have we decided? Again, we have choices. Have we decided to embrace or reject and then separate? All right. And so I want you to think about that in your experience, in your journey. And, really be honest. I want you to look yourself in the mirror. I want you to be honest, because I'm looking at you. I'm looking at you eyeball to eyeball tonight, so to speak, virtually. And so I want you to. There was a time in my life, guys, and I can remember it well, where I was angry with Yah because every single young boy in my neighborhood had their dad. And every single boy in my neighborhood, their dad would do things with them and take them to the park and take them to practice, take them, spend time with them. And I remember because I didn't have that, I was angry. I was angry with God. I was angry with my mother. I blamed my mother. I blamed people, my uncle. I blamed everyone because of this traumatic event that happened in my life. And at that moment, I decided, if God really cared for me, if he really loved me, if he was really on my side, he wouldn't have allowed this to happen. Now, in my mind, that made complete sense. But watch this. Watch this. From my mother's standpoint, come on and go with me here. When I was a child, I thought as a child, I understood as a child. And watch this. Now that I became a man, I put away childish things. And now I'm able to reflect and I'm able to see it from my mother's perspective and say, man, my mother was being abused. And so to my mom, it wasn't traumatic. Maybe it was relief. Maybe it was an answer to prayer. Possibly, as I got older and stronger, I probably would have done something to my dad that would have landed me in jail for life. Come on and go with me, guys. And so we got to put this thing into perspective and say, as a result of these traumatic events in my life, have I decided to embrace or reject? And then ultimately separate myself from Yah. Blessings. I want to start off just with that, and then I'm going to go into, my treatment of tonight's Parashat.
You're asking an active question, like, so everyone can answer this as a result of traumatic events question.
Yeah, let's hear from everyone. I mean, this is a relevant question, no matter how old you are, no matter how experienced or inexperienced you may be. And I'm gonna go into the scripture, man, because I just wanted to open this up with something we could all have an equal foundation with.
I would say, as a result of traumatic events, I would say that I decided to embrace. But of course, when we're younger, I think most of us are rejecting if we're not living in the truth or following the Torah anyway. Even if you don't know that's what you're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
But yes,
there could be people who are seeking though. So you could either be actively rejecting, or there are young people they're actively seeking. They're not rejecting, they're not embracing yet, but they're actively seeking. Sorry to interrupt. I just wanted to add that.
No, that's okay. Yeah, I would say I decided to embrace it. I've always gone to church since I was little with my aunts, and I think there was a period of time where I was actively rejecting just because I knew I wanted to be in the streets and partying. I honestly, that's just the truth. Like, I was young. I even prayed about it. Like, I don't want no kids till I'm between 26 and 28, and I want to go to college and party and have fun, and then I'll settle down later, type of thing. And yeah, I was actively rejecting for that period of time for sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, life events take place that will indubitably, force you to decide to keep rejecting or actually embrace it and come on back home. So I could do a mini or an original Netflix series. So we don't want to go into all the details, but I agree with that statement.
All right. All right. Anyone else? Just give a brief, explanation. Now, you may say, well, you know, I'm not yet, I'm unsure. I haven't decided to reject it yet. I haven't decided to embrace it. I'm still seeking. I'm still pondering. I haven't made a decision yet. And that's fine to be there. Blessings. What say you? And then personalize this question by changing the pronouns. Instead of we, you can say I. Or our, you can say my. Instead of we, you can say I. Uh, Instead of ourselves, you can say myself.
Blessing.
Blessings.
I would just say, based on the question, as a result of a dramatic event in our lives, have we decided to embrace or reject? I would say that during the time when I actually lost my dad, and and, uh, and I really needed to talk to him about some things going on in my life, and I felt like I did feel like a little bit like, I mean, he was still in my mind, he's still young. I don't understand why he had to leave when he left. I feel like he still had more strength in his body. If it wasn't for the cancer, he would have probably had more years. That's what I mean, that's from my own understanding. So I just don't understand why it was time for him to go then. It just seemed like maybe, um, because it feels like he helped a lot of people and he definitely helped us. And I feel he would have, he would have really been. I could be wrong, but I feel like he would have been definitely someone I could have talked to about some things that were going on in my life that I really needed to share with them, that I was really, really down in a down point. And I couldn't tell him because I didn't want him to suffer. And I just like, man, so I didn't understand what was going on. I was like, and I even prayed that Lord would heal him. And, you know, I even told the Lord, please, I know that I haven't been taking you really seriously, but, I really need you and I'm going to do better. I remember talking to him like that. Please, if you could just, heal him from this. And obviously, his answer was no, time for him to go. And
Yeah.
so, and then from there, having to, go through some, uh, I was at, experiencing divorce and at the same time and all type of changes in my life caught me off guard. And so, and then I lost my grandma just that's taking care of our grandmother. His mother lost her, and then I had to start over again in my life. I was like, figure out where I'm at. It's just like during that time I started getting closer to him. I actually was calling out to him and telling him I don't understand what's happening. This doesn't make any sense. I don't feel like he was like against me. I knew he was always in there. This drawing, this lecture actually drew me closer to him to actually say, Lord, I see that I know that this is happening, and I know that you're in control, and I know that you are faithful, and I know that you can heal, and I know that you could, keep me and guide me. And so I had this, strong respect for y'all still, like in the midst of all of that. And so I just want to say, yeah, the dramatic experience didn't push me away. Nothing pushed me away from y'all as far as going through, because I know in the end, I know that he's in control. So I just think that, keep that in mind, that I know that he knows what's best, and I've been taught that. You hear that growing up, like, he knows what's best. You might understand. Dad even told me seek wisdom, so I already been kind of prepped for, like, there's be some times where it's gonna be dark, some dark days, and you still, leaning on the everlasting. Like, you hear all these hymns that talked about, that would increase your faith. I remember those growing up, so I think those started kicking in, like hearing all those proverbs and all these sayings from people, especially those older deacons, talking about, I'm not giving up, I'm leaning on, I'm on the battlefield. You're hearing all these songs, and so all that stuff, those words, they started becoming powerful in the midst of the storms. So there's nothing really, that made me question, or no traumatic experience yet that actually shaking my faith. I pray it happens.
Blessings. All right, man. Anyone else? Man, that was touching, moving. I can feel you, brother. Anyone else? Anyone else want to share and talk? This is a, family discussion. Um, why not? Why not jump in? Why not? This talk, when you're sharing, it will bless you, because it'll help you to open up and to reflect on where you are in your journey. And so I think it's super important. Um, so yeah. However, I do want to mention, if we can go to Hebrews 11:13 and get started. Hebrews 11:13. If you can, I'll share this with you. Hebrews 11:13. I want to lift up some ideas out of here. I'm not going to go too deep, but I do want to lift up a couple ideas from this passage here. And this really hit me, this last portion of our reading. It really hit me because after listening to everything that, in Deuteronomy 7 through 11, Isaiah 49 and 51, Romans 8 and 31 through 39. And then finally, the last verse in Hebrews chapter 11 in our portion tonight. It really hit me. It really struck me. And so let me read it. It says, verses 1 through 12, talking about, if you didn't know, this chapter is called the Faith Hall of Fame. That's what people have called it. The triumph of faith. It defines what faith is. And it says by this, the elders. And it begins to tell you who these elders are. And so starting with verse 4, it talks about Abel. Verse 5, Enoch. Verse 6 continues to explain about faith a little bit more. Verse 7, Noah. And then we get to verse 8, where it begins to talk about Abraham. And then Sarah in verse 11. And then we get down to verse 13, and he's saying that these individuals he just mentioned, and then even the ones he's going to mention after verse 13, he says, these all died in faith. And now watch this. Because no man knows the day nor the hour. No person knows when or how they're going to pass away. We just don't. We don't have that kind of knowledge to know. And so he says, all of these individuals that I'm going to mention in this chapter, they died having hope. Watch this. They died holding on to their faith. And they didn't even receive the promise yet. But look at this. They saw it. They had faith to see it from afar off. And so even they didn't embrace it, even though they did not see it, by the way, even though they didn't receive it, they saw it by faith from afar off. And then watch this. 3 things happened. They were persuaded. They embraced it. And then what came out of their mouth was the evidence of their faith. Let me say this. What came out of their mouth was evidence of their faith. And what did they say? And they confessed that they were strangers and pilgrims on earth. In other words, they looked forward to the day that they would see Yah again. Knowing that they were going to die, they looked forward in faith, believing, watch this, in the resurrection. Come on and go with me here. And even when we go down to Abraham, let me show you one thing that shows that what I'm saying is true. Watch this. Look at verse 17. By faith, Abraham, when he was tried, he offered up Isaac. He was going to kill his own son. And he that had received the promises offered up his only begotten son. Talking about Yah himself. Or talking about Abraham, still. Verse 18, of whom it was said, that in Isaac shall your seed be called. Man, so watch this. The person that Abraham was going to sacrifice or kill, Yah had promised Abraham that in Isaac's seed, in Isaac being able to bear children, in Isaac's seed, in his ability to be able to have children, goodness, Abraham was still willing to offer Isaac up and kill him and kill off his ability to have children, knowing that Yah said through Isaac's ability to have children, the promise is going to come through him. What? Why would he kill him knowing that the promise is going to come through his son? Watch this. Verse 19 gives us the answer. He accounted. That means, this word accounting, it means to calculate, to look at all the evidence, to look at everything that has been said, to look at the ability of Yah, not to reject it, but to look at his ability in time past. In other words, the reason why Abraham died in faith is because Abraham did not use confirmation bias. Come on and go with me here. Accounting that Yah was able to raise up Isaac even from the dead. Wait a minute. All the way back in the Torah, the teaching, come on and go with me here, the teaching of the resurrection was there. Well, where did it start? Genesis chapter 3. Genesis chapter 3. Remember it said that the seed of the woman would bruise the heel of the enemy. It went all the way back. This is now watch this. Verse 13 again. He said, these all died in faith, having received the promises, but having seen them from afar off. In other words, the promise of the resurrection, every single person in the Old Testament, in the Torah, that is mentioned in Hebrews chapter 11, they saw the resurrection. How do I know that? Look at this. He says this small little word, these all. They all saw it. They all saw them from afar off. What did they see from afar off? They saw exactly what verse 19 said, that Yah was able to raise Isaac because Yah was able to raise Yeshua. Can I prove that? I hate to do this because it's like I'm doing a teaching, but I have to go here, guys. I have to go here and show you, what Yeshua said. And this is it. This is so super important. And so can someone turn to John chapter 8? Here, let me go there. I'll go there, guys. But I want you to turn there too, and I want you to write this one down. John chapter 8. See, when you become familiar, when you familiarize, Brother Mark, yourself with the scriptures, things just start coming to you through the Ruach. The Ruach will lead and guide us into all truth. He will lead us and guide us into all truth. Watch this, verse 56 in John chapter 8. Watch what Yeshua says. He says, Yeshua is talking to the Pharisees. He says, your father Abraham rejoiced to see my day. And he saw it and was glad. Well, what day was that? The resurrection. And this is why in Hebrews chapter 11, verse 19, Abraham accounted. He used the evidence, the empirical evidence that was in scripture. And then he used, because remember what our definition of faith is. You guys remember? Who knows? I know someone knows it by heart. Now, faith is the substance of things hoped for, the resurrection. And it's the evidence of the things that are not physically seen with your eye. Now, the reason, let me prove that out. This word seen right here, I guarantee you it's going to be a different word. Watch this. Blapomen. Blapomen. Okay? That's this scene right here with the naked eye. Okay? Now watch this. When we go to verse 19, or was it 18? Let's see. Oh, wait, here it is. Hey, man. Where'd that verse go? Was it in John? Oh, yeah. Let me go back to John. Hold on. Yeah, it was in John. Now watch this. So Blapelman was, now watch this. He saw it, right? It's a different word, saw. And see. Look at this word. To see my day. It's not Blapelman, horao. You guys see that? He saw it, idol. You see those three different words? Now watch this. The English uses the same exact word, but when you get, this is why, guys, that we teach the way we do at Rehoboth. Okay? And I pray that my brethren, that my fellow heralders, that my fellow teachers will use not English only. We have three different words here. We have idol, he saw, it's past tense. See, present tense, horao, but they're different words. And compare that to what Yeshua said in John, where he says this. So we see here, Yeshua said he rejoiced to see, and he saw it. But then we go back to verse 19 here in Hebrews, accounting that God was able to raise him up, even from the dead, from whence also he received the figure. Now, what kind of faith did he use? Go back to verse 1. Remember verse 1? The evidence of things not seen. Watch this. This is so beautiful. I love it. Completely different word. Seen. Blapelman. So the evidence of things not seen is completely different from Abraham saw my day and he rejoiced to see it. And so what am I saying? What am I saying? What am I talking about? We're talking about this question that's on the board here, on the screen. Have we decided to reject or embrace Yah based on what our eyes have seen, or have we chosen to embrace him based on what our faith can see? Now, where am I getting that from? Why did I go there first? Well, in our Parashat, we have Romans. Watch what Paul says. In verse 35, he says, who shall separate us from the love of Yeshua HaMashiach? Watch this. Traumatic events. Shall tribulation, distress, persecution? These are tragic events. Famine, nakedness, peril, or a sword, someone being killed, or even you being killed. Paul says, for I am persuaded. He says, I'm thoroughly convinced. Now, this word persuaded, guys, it's in the perfect passive. Oh, my goodness. Hallelujah. Watch this. Paul says, because I can see by faith past my traumatic events. He says, at some point in my life, because it's in the perfect, Yah completed this in my life. And so now, no matter what happens from this day forward, whether it's persecution, come on and go with me here, whether it's tribulation, whether it's the traumatic events of distress, whether it's the traumatic events of death, famine, not having food, not having clothes, going through confusing situations, or even people trying to kill me or my family. Paul says, I'm persuaded, but watch this. It's in the passive voice, guys. That means, oh my goodness. Paul, he allowed, come on and go with me, God Almighty, love it. Paul allowed the evidence that persuaded him to do his work. Watch this. To catergedzomai. to have his completing work in him. Goodness. And then watch this. This word persuaded is also in the indicative. That means it is a matter of fact that this happened. This is not some video game false reality. He says, no, this is reality. And I love this. And what did it do? See this word persuaded here? Pepesmai. It means to suffer or to allow yourself to be persuaded by the evidence. It means that when information about Yah is introduced to you, you reject using confirmation bias. In other words, when new information is presented to you, like you lost your job, the jig is up. Come on and go with me here. When new information is introduced to you, like information that you now have interstitial lung disease. Come on and go with me here. When new information is introduced to you, you don't use confirmation bias, but you use faith. Look, watch this. Let me keep going. I got to keep going. Because as a result of using faith, see, this is what we do. As a result of using, when we have traumatic experiences, like we've all admitted, even now, to some degree, we separate ourselves from the congregation. We stop coming. We stop participating. We don't give all of our, in other words, we short circuit Yah from catergedzomai us. In other words, we short circuit Yah from completing his work in us. And we stay stagnant. And the enemy is like this. I got him now. I got you now. And see, watch this, guys. I want to keep going because I know that I'm setting up and I'm going to be quiet in a second. And watch this. As a result of using my faith, watch this. Watch what Nehemiah 1 and 2 says. I like this. Nehemiah 1 and 2 says this. Now in the 24th year or 24th day of this month, the children of Israel were assembled. They didn't stop coming with fasting. Look at this. These are the things you need to do when new information like tribulation, distress, trials, perils, confusion, death, when all of these things, when all this new information is introduced in your life, number one, he says, you need to come to the congregation. He says they were assembled. But they didn't just come to the congregation any old way. Watch this. They came fasting. Well, what does that mean? It does mean to push away from the table, but it means more than that. Fasting is a symbol or a sign or indicates a spiritual meaning. It's not just physical, but it's a spiritual humbling of yourself. Oh, come on and go with me. Then he says this. Not only did they come to the congregation humbled, not trying to tell everybody what to do and all of that. He says they came with sackcloth. Now, sackcloth is a type of material that's rough. It's a material that's uncomfortable. In other words, they came to the assembly uncomfortable. Not in their comfort, but uncomfortable. Now watch this. He goes on to say they were in sackcloth. They were humbled. They were uncomfortable. But then he says, and earth was upon him. In other words, that means that dirt, they crushed dirt on their heads. They sprinkled dirt on their heads, guys. And that was a reminder that they are nothing without Yah. Watch what the next thing says. And the seed of Israel, they separated themselves, not from Yah though. Because remember, sprinkling the dirt, they came humbled, they came uncomfortable, they came knowing that they were nothing without Yah. And as a result, they didn't separate themselves from him. They separated themselves from all strangers. That means people that practice wickedness, people that was on the down low, people that were doing things that were shady. They separated themselves from people that lied. They separated themselves from people that were into pharmakia, into drugs. They separated themselves from people that would commit fornication, spiritually and physically. They separated themselves from all strangers. And then watch this. They all stood in the assembly, confessed their sins. See, this is what's not happening in the congregation, because we can't even do that in the congregation. You know why? You know why the pastor can't confess his sins in the congregation? And see, I'm a free mind. Look, I can do it. I have no problem with confessing my sins. I have no problem saying I got to fight against lust. I have no problem saying I got to fight against fornication. I have no problem, not fornication, but because I'm married, it will be adultery. I have no problem confessing I got to fight to keep my eyes on Yah. I got to fight to do it. I'm confessing mine. And watch this. See, he says the iniquities of their fathers. Now, that doesn't mean you're confessing the sins of your fathers. No, it means that you're confessing. And if you look at the word iniquity, oh my gosh. I'm confessing those things that I watched my parents do, that I have tendencies, come on to go in, to do today. Because watch this, we learn sickness from our parents. We learn wickedness from our parents. Watch this. I can keep going with this, man. But let me go back to the Torah with this. I'm going to bring this all the way back around to the Torah. This is why in Deuteronomy 8 and 2, I wish I can go to Isaiah 49. I'm just going to go to Isaiah. I'll go back to it. This is why we can do like Deuteronomy 8 and 2. And I shall remember all the way which the Lord thy Yah led me these 40 years in the wilderness. In other words, I'm going to remember all the things that I had to, all the distresses I went through, all the traumatic events he brought us through. All of these things I'm going to remember, not so much the trauma, but I'm going to remember and focus on him bringing me through them. You know why? Because you're still here. Watch this. To humble thee and to test you, to know what was in your heart. Listen, and I'm done. He allowed us to go through, to experience these traumatic events. Let me help it make sense for you. To test you, to see if you would hold on to Yah or not. See, he wants to know, are you going to just throw him away? Are you going to decide to reject him because things aren't going your way? And then watch this. Whether you would keep his commandments or no. Whether you would continue to celebrate Shabbat. Whether you would continue to elevate his word. Whether you would continue to do all those things. He wants to see what's in our hearts. And the only way, now watch this. He knows what's in our hearts. But you know who's fooled? We are. See, we think because we've been holek batarayim. That's not a word. I'm just. Because we think we've been holek batara. We think we've arrived. We think we got a word of wisdom. We think we can analyze people and determine their spiritual status. But Yah says, wait a minute. You so busy looking at other people. Have you forgot to check your own record? He says, you must have forgot. He says, you ain't remembering. your own stuff about how he brought you through. And the reason why he brought us through is so that we can, by faith, look back and say, you know what? If he did it before, he can do it again. Blessings. I'm done. That's it. And I'm done. Blessings.
Brother, that was good.
That was my insight. That was my insight, man. I love this Torah discussion. I love it. Now, what do you have? What's your insight? I want to know. Listen, now, if that was good to you, come on, be a blessing to me. Be a blessing to me. I want to hear from you now. Blessings.
Pastor, you're a tough act to follow.
Oh, no.
Good info.
Yeah. Blessing. Yeah. Look, all I did was to confess where I was. I looked at, man, look, if you do this, if you look back and say, you know what? I'm going to start confessing the stuff that I got to struggle with. And guess what? I'm still here. Listen, man. You know, that's the kind of atmosphere that I want to create at Rehoboth. See, some of us forget. We've forgotten. Yeah, we've forgotten. And the Lord has to tap us on the shoulder and say, hey, buddy, remember that? It wasn't you. That was me. That was all me. Anybody ever got tapped on their shoulder and y'all said, hey, buddy, don't go thinking. It was all you. I can keep going. Yeah, I mean, any questions, any comments, I can keep going. I got more. I cut it short. I can keep going though. I got all this. Oh my goodness. I got more. I got more. These are all my notes. See, this is what happens when we forget. Let me just tell you what happens when we forget. See, when we forget, your heart is going to be lifted up in pride. And why? And you forget the Lord thy Yah, which brought you forth out of all of the tribulation, out of all the peril, the nakedness, being hungry, destitute. You're going to forget all of that stuff. And watch this. You know what you're going to start doing? You're going to start thinking. Watch what he says down here. He says, he says, be careful if you forget, because now you're going to start saying, watch this. You're not going to say it in congregation, in front of people. Nope, you're not going to say it in front of people in congregation. Mm-mm. You know when you're going to say it? You're going to say it so that nobody will know, because you're going to say it in your heart. This is what you're saying if you forget or if you reject Yah. I did this on my own. I pulled myself up by my bootstraps. It was my power, and then watch this, and my might of mine hand that got me this wealth. Now, let me say this, guys. I want to help you out, because many people don't have that's why I don't let anybody just tell me what the word of Yah says. Straight up. I'm a researcher. That word wealth has nothing to do with money. It has nothing to do with money. Let's keep it in context. Remember, he's talking about it was my power and my might that brought me all this way. Now watch this. Well, what does wealth mean? Wealth means strength. You know how people say your health is your wealth? Oh, come on and go with me here. Your health is your might, your ability, your efficiency, your force. In other words, You could be wealth means you're like a one-person army. And people have put it like this. Look, our grandmamas and them put it like this. They said this, guys. This is what they were talking about. This was their wealth. They said, I may not have a lot of money, but watch this. If Yah be for me, he's more than the world against me. It's me and Yah. We're like an army, he says. Then he says, watch this. It's your virtue. Your wealth is your virtue. It's your valor. It's your character. He says it's your ability to have the activity to do things. He says, in other words, you're like soldiers with Yah. Now watch this, though. I love this. He says, your wealth is your power. Your ability, watch this, to remember Yah and to remember that he gave you the ability. So watch this. This is what people say in their hearts. It was my ability. Now I got power right here. Now I could go into construct and deal with that, but I'm gonna wait till the lesson. I'm gonna do a lesson on this and deal with the construct. Oh my God, there's just so much. Again, my power is dealing with human strength. My might is dealing with, watch this, your bones. Oh, wait a minute, Pastor. What do you mean your bones? Look at this. Watch this, guys. See, we think it's our ability and our might, but Yah has to remind us of this. That's what Jeremiah says. Verse 7 and 17. He says, Israel is scattered as sheep. The lions have driven him away. First, the king of Assyria. Uh-oh. What happened to your power and strength then? Had devoured him. And last, this Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had broken Israel's bones. Oh my God. In other words, watch this. The fact that we are here in America should be a constant reminder that you don't have no strength. No. Woo! Oh my gosh. He said it should be a constant reminder to you to pipe down. Yeah. It should be a constant reminder of you to not throw stones at his messengers. Come on and go with me here. It should be a constant reminder that you need to respect the authority of his messengers. Who? Jeremiah, Isaiah, all of the prophets, and all of his, watch this, shepherds today. His true shepherds. He says you need to put some respect on my mouthpieces. Yeah, that's what he's saying. Because why does he have to tell Israel that? Because they forgot. You forgot who you're dealing with. You forgot that who said it? Was it Isaiah or Jeremiah? He said, from my mother's womb, he knew my name. He ordained me to be a prophet to the nations. In other words, he ordained him to speak on Yah's behalf to the heathen, to Israel. See, you must have forgot. Touch not my anointed. Come on and go with me here and do my prophet no harm. You forgot. You forgot about that part. So he had to tap us on our shoulder and say, hey, buddy, you're not in Israel. You in Babylon right now. You're in captivity right now. And that should be a constant reminder to humble down. Blessings, I'm done. I got more though. I got so much more. That's why I say I'm gonna have to turn this into a lesson, a series. Ooh, I can't wait for Mark to be done. I'm going in on this. Look, come on. Somebody got questions? I know you got questions because I haven't even dealt with Isaiah 49 yet.
Blessings.
Come with it.
See, you say you can't wait for me to be done. So you ready to get up tomorrow? You ready to get up on Shabbat? See,
I can go. Hey, always be ready.
I know. I had a question on what do you think about this? I was in Deuteronomy chapter 8, I was just there, and it was talking about if you keep the commandments of the Lord your God, your Yah, no one in your land should be barren, right?
Yeah.
No woman should be barren. So you have that, and none of the sicknesses. You should. No one will be sick. And we
Right.
see in Exodus says in Exodus, I think 15, chapter 15 says, "I'm the Lord your healer." He even says, I'll never put none of this diseases I put on the Egyptians on you obey."
Yeah.
So it's obvious that I'm gonna find the scripture. It's obvious that the only reason why why some of the women were barren, I think what I'm thinking is something. One of the reasons, or is because either because of sin, or he was just like you said, he was testing their faith. Because a lot of let's take Samuel's mom, Hannah, and let's take also who else was barren that prayed. Yeah, Elizabeth was barren, but we see Hannah who also displayed. She said, "If you would just give me a child, I promise you, he'll serve you." Or she prayed. So, what do you think about that? Do you think that she was barren because of? And we know during that time, Israel wasn't acting all. It wasn't act. It wasn't walking before him the way they should. Do you
Yeah.
think that she was barren because to display that what type of faith she had? Like that's the example. That's one example of the type of faith, how faith is displayed. Or do you think that she was barren because of just the fact that you know she because of sin, her could it be some things that she was doing because then it said that she was blameless. So I was contemplating on that because it seems like in the text it was saying that if you follow if you guys follow my commandments, you will have no one barren in the land at all.
Mhm.
And I'm
Okay.
trying to find that. So what's your thoughts on that? Why some of the women were barren? Was it
Oh,
because
I mean, it's various reasons. Um, I think number one, if we go to um, Deuteronomy 28, because remember, this was before, when you talk about Deuteronomy chapter 8, he had said this many times before. We don't have to go to 28. We can go to Deuteronomy chapter 4. We can go to Deuteronomy, and it's in Deuteronomy chapter 4. It's in Deuteronomy chapter 28. It's all over the scripts that deals with. And so let's go to 4. Let's go to Deuteronomy 4 because he said this right before chapter 8. All right. And he says here, oh yes. Oh yes. So somewhere around 35, let's see. Let me go to 33. I'm just going to go to 33 just to give one answer. Because when you bring up a specific example about Sarah, now you have to go to context about why Sarah was barren. And I'm sure the answer is in the text, but let's start with verse 33. Did ever people hear the voice of God speaking out of the midst of the fire as thou hast heard and live? Or have God essayed to go and to take him, a nation, from the midst of another nation, by temptations, by signs, and by wonders, and by war, and by a mighty hand, and by a stretched out arm, and by great terrors, according to all that the Lord your God did for you in Egypt before your own eyes? Unto thee it was showed, that thou mightest know that the Lord, he is God, there is none else beside him. So having all this background knowledge Israel had, out of heaven he made thee to hear his voice. See, this is why when people talk about there is no God, and again, he's talking to Israel, but this can apply to, according to Ecclesiastes 12, 13, and 14, it could apply to everybody. He says, out of heaven he made thee to hear his voice, that he may instruct thee, and upon earth he showed thee his great fire, and thou heardest his words out of the midst of the fire. But watch this. And because he loved thy fathers, therefore he chose their seed after them, and brought thee out in his sight with his mighty power out of Egypt. Watch this. To drive out the nations from before thee, greater and mightier than thou art, to bring thee in, to give thee their land, and for an inheritance, as it is this day. Verse 39. Know therefore this day, and you need to consider it, he said, in your hearts, that the Lord, he is God, in heaven above, and upon the earth beneath, there is none else. Watch this. Thou shalt keep therefore his statutes and his commandments, which I command this day, that it may go well with you and with your children after you, and that you may prolong thy days upon the earth, which the Lord God has given thee. And so watch this. Why are people barren? Simply because they didn't do what verse 40 says. Thou shalt keep the statutes and his commandments. That's number one off the top. Now let me show you a verse in the Gospels that Yeshua said, and he mentions that he did not go to Israel or Judah when they were barren, but he went to women who were outside of Israel. Let me find that passage. Does anyone know? I know Sister Ben knows it because we were watching Chosen, and he preached on this. It was when he went into the synagogue. They handed him the scroll. Where did he say that in the Gospels? Hold on. Goodness. Hold on, I'm gonna get it. I'm gonna find this.
Oh, you're talking about, I think it's Luke chapter 17.
Yes, sir.
We're going off of, I think it's
he was talking about 1 Kings chapter 17 too. That's where the story is. Oh. When Elijah went to the widow of Zarephath because she was hungry.
Oh, okay. That's
that. Right. No, that one. That's one. But then also he went to the women that were barren. Oh my goodness, which passage was that? Oh my God. You said Luke 17, yeah?
No, that's when he got the scroll. What you said, and he had the scroll of Isaiah said, and it's been fulfilled. Let me find it. Hold on, the other one about the bear.
But it goes to the point of what you were talking about why people were barren. And watch this. Because he went to the synagogue, and I think he was in the synagogue.
I think it was Luke 4. I'm not sure.
Which one?
Luke 4, maybe. Hold on.
I think you might be right. Sorry, these scriptures should be coming to me like that, but I remember the one in Zarephath. It was when he went into the synagogue in Nazareth. Hold on, you may be right. And he came to Nazareth.
4:16, and he came to Nazareth. Yep, it's 4:16. Start at 17. Bang. 16 or 17.
Yes, ma'am. Look at this. And he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up. And as his custom, he went into the synagogue. Now, let me say this, just to give you a little understanding. Now, there was a temple, but then there was also, the temple was in Jerusalem. That's where everyone went. But the synagogues were they called them local. They were in cities, the local synagogue. All right. On the Sabbath day, and he stood up to read. And there was delivered unto him the book of the prophet Isaiah. And And when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written, "The Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor, to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recover sight to the blind, and liberty those that are bruised, to preach acceptable year of the Lord." And he closed the book, and he gave it again to the minister, and then he sat down, and then he started interpreting it. Watch this. He says, this scripture is fulfilled in verse 21. He says, this day, this scripture is fulfilled. Then he says in 22, I love it. And all bear witness and wondered at the glorious words that proceed out of his mouth, that they said, is this not Joseph's son? Hold on. Oh yes, verse 25. He says, but I tell you the truth. Many widows were in Israel in the days of Elias, when the heaven was shut up 3 years, 6 months, and gave famine, but unto none of them in Israel he didn't go. Why didn't they go to those in Israel?
Because he needed to show these miracles to the people outside, like you preaching to it's people who don't have.
Come on, sister. Absolutely, because there were people in in Nazareth that were not just Jews. And that's number one. And then number two, he was comparing how prideful and haughty and arrogant the Jews were in Yeshua's day, and showed them the same haughty arrogance that Israelites had in Elias's day, because they did not listen to the prophet. They rejected his words. So he goes back. Watch this, y'all. Verse 40.
I think I figured out how.
Thou shalt keep therefore his statutes and his commandments. Boom, there it is. Which I commanded thee this day, that it may go well with you, with the children after thee. We just read that, didn't we? And that thou mayest prolong thy days upon the earth. We just read that. Hold on real quick. I'm looking for the one where he said he went to the woman. He didn't go to them when they were barren. Good grief. I want to show you this because, Mark, that was an awesome question.
Yeah. Hey, Pastor, I also wanted to say that I was really trying to connect it also. I know Sarah, but to Hannah, because it appears that he granted her not just her child, but her child ended up being a really a great example of a servant. So it's like, because the thing is, in my logic and my thinking, I can be saying, okay, was she buried because of sin, but then he granted her, because he didn't say forgive me. I mean, she came humbly, and she was, she was hurting, and he granted her, and she made a vow, and he granted that.
Okay. And
so I'm thinking to myself, is that displaying like strong faith of like him answering a prayer because she ended up asking something in faith, and it was that the type of faith that pleased y'all right there, because she believed that if she really went before him and begged and said, I really want this, I will do whatever, that's the type of faith we should have. Or maybe should we look at it from the angle of like also that she was in that condition because of something she did, or the state that she was in, and because it said in there like none of you should be barren. You will never be barren if you obey my ways. So, right. I'm thinking to myself like she would have never been in a case where she was ever in that situation.
Yeah,
maybe that, or maybe he purposely even though she like she said she was blameless, but then she was barren. So like, are some people barren because of the fact that he's going to show his power and display, testing your faith, or is he having people be barren because some people are not obeying the commandments? It seems like it's two different situations. I just need confirmation that is that the way we should see it.
I would see it like this. Ultimately, it's because of sin of our ancestors. Now, Individuals can overcome that. So the barrenness ultimately goes back to Adam and Eve. That's the ultimate reason why women are barren, because he commanded Adam and Eve to be fruitful and multiply. But because sin was brought into the world, now you have women who go through conditions of being barren, men and women. Men cannot produce the seed, and women cannot produce the egg. They're barren because of sin originally. Now, individuals can overcome that by being blameless. Individuals can overcome that because they hold on to the commandments of Yah, like Elizabeth did. She said she was blameless, and I'm assuming Sarah as well. But the condition of barrenness, Rehoboth, is it goes back to not keeping the commandments from generation to generation, starting with Adam and Eve, that brought sin into the world. What one result of sin is being barren, is being born blind. All kinds of traumatic things happen because of sin ultimately being brought into the world. Again, you can have women that overcome that if they walk blameless. And see, that's hopeful. That's hopeful for every single individual, because you can say this: I know in my family, people are unrighteous. I know in my ancestry, I know people around me are unrighteous, but guess what? I can remember. I will not forget what Yah has done for me, and I'm going to walk blameless, and I'm going to overcome, whether it's being barren, whether it's being sick, Abba Yah heals, whatever the traumatic experience that we have, we can overcome it. Exampled in Elizabeth and Sarah in reference to being barren. Now there Yeshua even said the reason why he did not go to Israel or Judah to the women who were barren. He says, I cannot find it. That's why I'm hoping someone's able to find that. It's in one of the Gospels. Did anyone find that? I wish I could see it, but hey. Because I think Luke 1:7 says about Elizabeth. Oh man. I know when I hang up this phone, I know the scripture is just gonna pop out at me. It's gonna pop up. But it was in the gospel when he preached at Nazareth. Oh goodness. This is disappointing. Anyway, so yeah, that's my initial. We could definitely study that out more, but I mean, it makes sense to me like that. But that doesn't mean that that's the final answer, biblical answer. Blessing, unless someone comes up with something more biblical and convincing.
Blessings.
Check
out Hebrews 11:11. It's pretty interesting. It's tied into what you were talking about in Hebrews.
11:11.
Yeah, it's pretty dope. Hold on, put it on speaker. I gotta put it on speaker.
I got it right here.
Yeah, because I think you was in Hebrews earlier, right? So, yeah, you'll talk about Abraham, how he believed that Yah was able to raise up Isaac, and here he's like, though, yeah, mine's just reading. By faith, Sarah herself received power by it to conceive, even when she was past the age, since she considered him faithful who had promised. So it's like, yeah, that's why I was asking. Also, like, does it have anything to do, like, to show us to have anything has to do with, like, also with the faith, to show us, like, what does faith look like? Is there, there's different examples, like, is he using the barren situation also, not only just with the sinful, like you said, the sin that's there, but also to also use it at the same time to give us examples of what faith looks like.
Oh yes.
Okay.
Oh yes. So yes. Anyone else? Any questions, comments, anything that struck you? I think, guys, this parasha is really dealing with, as a result of all the things Yah has done for us. How can we forget? How can we reject him? In other words, what has Yah done to us really that causes us to reject him? That's really the essence of this particular parasha, because he's saying that, in the Torah portion, he's saying, wait a minute. If you go and you look at all of chapter 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, you read those, man, and you will see that there was really no reason for Israel to reject Yah the way they did. Just like it's exampled in, give you one verse here, in chapter 7, verse 14, man. He's telling us, he says, thou shalt be blessed above all people. There shall not be male or female, like you said, Brother Mark, barren among you or among your cattle. And the Lord will take away from thee all the sickness and put none of these evil things on you. Right? He says all that. But then he says this. Look at the lack of faith in verse 17. If you shall say in your heart, though, these nations are more than I, how can I dispossess them? Thou shalt not be afraid of them, but shall well remember, again, what the Lord thy God did unto Pharaoh. He's saying, wait a minute, how can we forget all these things of Yahweh? In other words, what has Yah done against us that makes us reject him, forget and reject him? And so he continues to chastise Israel and to let them really know what Paul said. And see, this is what Paul is picking up on in Romans chapter 8. This is why Paul says in Romans 8, guys, he says he's persuaded already. It's a finished, it's a final, completed action in Paul's journey, that he's persuaded that nothing, death, life, angels, principalities, powers, nor things present, things to come, height, depth, nor any other creature be able to separate him from the love of Yah, which is in Yeshua HaMashiach. And then even in verse 31, he tells us right here, if Yah is for us, who can be against us? But in times of trial, in times of tribulation, in times of distress, in times of persecution, in times of famine, nakedness, peril, or the sword, and we go through these traumatic events, we forget. And we forget that we are more than conquerors. You are a conqueror. This is why Paul was able to be persuaded. He wasn't persuaded by the traumatic events, but he was persuaded by the fact that Paul is still here with an opportunity, watch this, to remember his pain and to remember being delivered. But see, you know what we See, this is what we do. We're persuaded, but we're persuaded by evidence that's not true. We're persuaded by information that's not even true. Because if you look at this word persuaded, perpessamai, it's not just information that's true, but it could also be information that's false. See, if you look at this word here, persuaded, where Paul used it here for I'm persuaded. See, we're not persuaded by the truth. Many of us are easily persuaded by false information. In other words, let me give you an example. This is how we're persuaded by false information. You could be I used this example before, I hope you get it. You could be on a ship that is just huge, that carries over 7,000 people, that when it moves on the ocean in the midst of the sea, you can barely even feel that it's moving. And then when a great storm comes, someone in a little tugboat, in a little canoe, yells to you from on that ship, from the bottom of that ship, in that little canoe when the storm is coming. Someone yells to you and say, "You need to be in my boat." And what do? You get off the ship and you get in his boat, knowing that the information that he's giving is false. That is a picture of people every day who reject Yah because they believe one or two things. They believe that they are the masters of their own fate. In other words, they believe that they're the ones that have the power and the authority. Remember what it said in Deuteronomy chapter, Deuteronomy 8, somewhere around 16, 17. They believe that their power and that it was their might. See, there are people right now, guys, that reject Yah because this is what they're saying. They don't want anyone else to have the authority over their lives. In other words, they want to install themselves as the final authority. That's the ultimate reason why people reject Yah. That's it right there. Because people would rather say, you know what? I'm cool on Yah. You stay over there, I stay over here. I can do bad all by myself. And they set themselves up because they reject the authority. They rebel against Yah. And remember, rebellion is as the sin of witchcraft. We talked about witchcraft last week. And so what people are doing that reject Yah, his existence and everything else, what they're saying is, I don't need Yah. My mama needed him. My daddy needed him. My grandparents and great-grandparents needed him. But this generation of people, many of them have said, I don't need Yah. I woke myself up this morning. Come on and go with me here. I got out of bed by myself this morning. I don't need him. I got my money. I got my boyfriend. I got my girlfriend. I don't need Yah. Oh, yes, Sister Ivana. Come on, sister. This is in, I'm not sure what passage here, but remember when Yeshua said this? And his disciples answered, saying, Master, who did sin? That this man or his parents, that he was born blind? Yeshua answered, neither had this man sinned, nor his parents, but that the works of Yah should be made manifest in him. And so to answer the question, why are women barren? Here's another awesome response. Why are women barren? Why are, people blind? Why? In other words, sin brought all of these things into our world, but there are people who haven't done any sin. They were born. But remember, there's a difference, guys. You got to remember this. There's a difference between being born in sin and sinning after you're born. Come on and go with me here. That there's a difference. Because we're born in sin, all of these things happen to us. Thank you, Sister John 9:2. John 9:2-3. But a person can live their life for Yah and still not be exempt from trials, tribulations, the trauma of being blind, the trauma of being barren. And when that happens, just like this man in John 9, just like Elizabeth, just like Sarah, just like Hannah, they can overcome these traumatic events. Why? John 9:3. But that the works of Yah shall be manifest in them. Bless you. Any other comments? Any questions? Anything anyone would like to share? Blessings. What a question. What an awesome question. And Sister Lana, what an awesome response. Everybody. You know, guys, you better start participating in this. Not because I'm asking. Not because I'm asking. But because of what we just talked about. There's going to come a time when Yah is going to show you who's really in control. And listen, you can come when he speaks softly and tenderly, or you can come when he doesn't speak so softly and tenderly. I'd rather come when he's speaking softly and tenderly. Ho, ho, ho. Boy. All right. Any questions, any comments, anything else anyone would like to share? So good to see everyone here tonight. Sister Benz and everyone. Brother David, Brother Josiah, Brother Avion, Sister Elaine, Sister Devana, Sister McGee. Blessings to you. Remember this Shabbat, Brother Mark is going to be sharing in the Word, 10 a.m. sharp. In other words, you know, if you arrive on time, you're late. Come early. Come kick it with the saints. I can remember a time when we went to church on Sundays. We were there early. We were there at 8 o'clock, 8:30 for Sunday school. 8:30 to 9:30. We had breakfast. Then we went into worship. Come on now. Let's keep the command. Let's not forsake the assembling of ourselves. So I look forward to seeing you, being encouraged, man, to keep going, to keep holding on to Yah, and not to forget, but to keep living one day at a time in the fear and the admonition of Yah. Blessings. Shalom to you guys, and Lila Tov. Blessings.
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 Blessing.